Unfortunately, all of this good is happening for our country. This administration is working hard on behalf of the American public every day, but the mainstream media continues to be focused on a sensationalized story from the failing Atlantic magazine that is falling apart by the hour. Here are the facts. The National Security Advisor has taken responsibility for this matter, and the National Security Council immediately said, alongside the White House counsel's office, that they are looking into how a reporter's number was inadvertently added to this messaging thread. We have said all along that no classified material was sent on this messaging thread. There were no locations, no sources, or methods revealed, and there were certainly no war plans discussed. Know how to fabricate or...
That is Caroline Levitt talking about this week's media kerfuffle. Let's get into it.
Media Outlaw.
Hello, everybody. I am Kiara Ashanti. This is the Media Outlaw, and we are going to talk about this week's media situation that has kind of taken a life of its own, considering this type of story would normally be maybe a 1 or 2 day story, but considering that it's coming from the Trump administration and considering how mainstream media feels about him, it's going to be a little bit longer of an out. Let me try to get my mic here situated because I want to make sure that we get into this completely. So if you're not exactly sure what we're talking about, if you haven't kept up on the news, here is what happened. A Signal chat group was set up, and among several of the president's national security leaders, apparently Atlantic editor-in-chief reporter Jeffrey Goldberg was mistakenly added to the chat that was discussing plans to attack the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Of course, Democrats on the Intelligence Committee grilled Trump administration officials on how and why this could have happened. Republicans downplayed the leak. And in fact, you'll see that the Trump administration declared that the Atlantic Signal article is a hoax after the article was subsequently written by Jeffrey Goldberg. So, if you're not aware of what Signal is, let's kind of do a little deep background real quick. So, Signal is like telegraph. Basically, rather than you setting up, texts with 5 or 6 people, you have one group text that's set up through this messaging app. The first type to do this, I think, was WhatsApp. Then Telegram came out, and now we have Signal, which is a competitor. This is a commercially available application, or app, so you will. Let me get here a little bit. Again, I'm going to just adjust the cameras here because the camera's not doing particularly what I wanted. That's better. So, when I say commercially available, Signal is an app that you can download from the internet, from the Apple Store, from Google Play Store, and you can set up your own little group messages in there. Now, the one thing about Signal is that once the chat is over, after a certain period of time, it disappears. It erases itself. So this brings up a couple of different questions here that people have about this situation. Okay, so first of all, the fact that Signal can be erased or will be erased after the chat is done obviously harkens back to what happened with Hillary Clinton's email server. If you're, just to review ancient history, Hillary Clinton set up her own server outside the government to do work. This means that whatever she did on there wouldn't have complied with the Federal Reporting Act, which requires all records and communications to be, housed and recorded and kept. Since that server was going to be outside the government, anything and everything that was on it, nobody would have ever known, would have never seen the light of day, except because we found out about it. Now, people are saying that this is kind of similar to that. It's not really true. I mean, it's not as if these people went out and created their own little app that no one else knew about, that's on a server outside the government, that no one could ever find. And certainly they weren't hiding it in somebody's house in a random closet like Hillary Clinton was. Nonetheless, this is a commercially available app. I want to go back to this. Just take a look at this again, all right? This is how you get it. Go to Signal, go to the website, and download it and set it up. So, that's what happened. Here is how Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, reacted to this. I think the people who have the best video in terms of his reaction and what he had to say is on the Two-Way podcast put together by Mark Halprin. I think you'll find it interesting here.
Yep. All right. I want to talk about the Jeffrey Goldberg angle, because one of the crazy parts of this story is that he's arguably the most prominent hostile reporter to Trump in America. I mean, if you look at his track record, he is even if you don't believe, as many smart people do, that he's made stories up to hurt Donald Trump, even if you don't believe that, as many smart people do, his hostility is manifest. How he could be in colloquy with the national security advisor of this president is a phenomenal thing, although then you remember the president himself.
Yeah, let me just interject something right now, because Mark is talking about something that, I mean, there are many layers to this story and the ridiculousness of it, but he brings up one of the main things, which is this reporter, Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic. We're going to get into some of his details in a moment, but just off the top, he's not a lover of Trump. He does have TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. So how he ended up on any type of email chain, conference call, anything like that with top advisors is in itself a mystery. So much so, I mean, this is so ridiculous that if you were listening or reading YouTube videos on Twitter, Facebook, there were literally people who were saying that either A, the Trump administration did this on purpose, that they put him on the thread for the express purpose of letting the mainstream media know what it is that the Trump administration was up to. Other people have thought that clearly he somehow catfished his way into getting added to the email chain, well, not email chain, excuse me, onto the chat, because of course, any other reason would be ridiculous. I mean, you wouldn't have a reporter, and if you're going to have a reporter, it wouldn't be this particular reporter. So that's why the thumbnail says, was this done on purpose? Intentional? Because of course, everybody believes that Trump was always playing 4D chess.
Administration. Our troops, our sailors were getting shot at as targets. Our ships couldn't sail through. And when they did shoot back, it was purely defensively or at shacks in Yemen. President Trump said, no more. We will reestablish deterrence. We will open freedom of navigation, and we will ultimately decimate the Houthis, which is exactly what we're doing as we speak from the beginning, overwhelmingly. I've heard I was characterized. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there's...
So we're going to stop right here. I'm going to just go back over to the other camera here. So that was Pete basically going off on Jeffrey Goldberg, saying that there weren't any plans released, there weren't any details talked about, and that, of course, that he's a discredited, you can't believe the source because he hates Donald Trump so much. And as you hear Mark Halperin talk about, people who are in the industry, they know this about him. They know he doesn't like Trump, okay? But nonetheless, he was on the chat. That is completely true. And he was on Morning Joe and had this to say. So I'm going to go back to that screen, and we're going to kind of fast forward to where he is being interviewed on Morning Joe, okay?
Yep. All right. I want to talk about
Just scroll through this real quick to get his reaction.
Yeah, well, there's more than one text in that exchange. The CIA director came in with operational information. The National Security Advisor came in with after battle assessments, or actually during battle assessments of the damage done, including the damage done to human targets and how those people were targeted. Again, I don't want to go into details because I don't think it's responsible to put out operational issues, and I don't understand all the sources and methods issues that.
Now, Morning Joe popped this up because even as Caroline Leavitt was basically saying that this was all a hoax, the Trump administration was also confirming that the messages were authentic and that this discussion did happen. And, not to pat myself on the back here, but this is something that I did talk about in the book I wrote about leadership dealing with Donald Trump. One of the things that I point out there is that very often with the Trump administration, one side doesn't know what the other side is doing. And the reason for that is right now, and there are pluses and minuses to this, but right now, from Donald Trump all the way down to anybody in his cabinet, they're the most transparent administration in the history of this country. They will all have impromptu press conferences. They will all answer questions from reporters on the way to the plane, helicopter, limousine, whatever it is. None of them have any problem taking questions from the press. Now that's a good thing, but the bad thing is, from a communications point of view, is when events like this happen, when breaking news that requires a response from the administration comes out fast and furious, the left hand and the right hand don't know what they're doing. That's just the nature of it, but it causes problems. And so even as I say, you look at this tweet by Brit Hume. Brit Hume is at Fox News. He's a very fair reporter. He's a very fair commentator, but he is on the right. And so for him to say this, it's no left-wing shill. He's basically like, come on, Pete. Come on, guys. What are you doing here?
That are raised by this from an intelligence perspective. But no, I mean, I don't. I saw Hegseth's response yesterday. It was just unserious. Obviously, this would, by the standard vernacular understanding of what war plan means, it was at 1:45, this is going to happen. At 1:52, this is going to happen. Then this happens. Then that happens. And then we do this. And then we do that. He's telling this group. He's letting them know probably more than they need to know. I mean, the Secretary of State, the Chief of Staff of the White House don't actually need to know which weapons packages are being deployed in what way. Obviously, right before an attack. If you're doing an after-action report,
I'm going to stop it here.
All right,
because this is that last point is true. Let me scroll over to this picture here, this screenshot. All right, so this is all the people that were on this chat. All right, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people. Look at their names, look at the faces. We're going to come back to this in a little bit. But first, let's kind of deal with the elephant in the room here. Okay, so Who is this guy right here? Jeffrey Goldberg. Well, this is what we've got here on his Wikipedia page. He is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. The Atlantic is kind of like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Newsweek. It's a left-wing media outlet. Democrat-leaning, progressive-leaning. So what that means is, under the best of circumstances, anybody working there is going to be against Donald Trump. Now, this isn't really the best of circumstances. This guy has a particular history. So we're going to skip all of this stuff right here. Let me go to this thing. So, career. Let's just skip down to 2020. In September of 2020, Goldberg published an article called "Trump, Americans Who Died in War Are Losers and Suckers" in The Atlantic. Now, according to Goldberg's article, in canceling a 2018 visit to the Seine-Marne American Cemetery and Memorial in France, I'm totally saying that wrong, but you can see it on the screen. This particular memorial and cemetery contains the remains of approximately 2,289 U.S. service members killed during World War I. He alleges that Donald Trump said privately, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." He also reportedly referred to the more than 800 U.S. Marines who lost their lives at the Battle of Belleau Wood as suckers for getting killed. So, that's what he wrote. Unfortunately, or fortunately, for all of the members of those service members and for the president himself, the article was a lie. Those words were never spoken by Donald Trump. He made them up whole cloth. In addition, he's written many articles about Russiagate. He believed that whole narrative. He also was one of the people who helped perpetuate and push the phony narrative of good people on both sides of the aisle. He's not an honest broker. He does have TDS. There's a person that really goes into this a little bit better. Let's go over to this right here. This is an article put out by the Real News Network. Now, this was an investigation for the Columbia Journalism Review by Jeff Gertz. I want you to understand something. Gertz is a winning journalist who worked at the New York Times. Now, there are two key issues here, okay? One, Gertz is doing this for the Columbia Review. The Columbia Review is not a Republican or conservative outlet. Like most journals that deal with media and reporting and news, it's left-leaning. Two, Gertz himself worked for the New York Times. That's the granddaddy of all left-wing outlets. So it's not as if he has any real incentive to say bad things about somebody like Jeff Goldberg. Nonetheless, he does have some things to say. And I'm just going to skip most of this article and do a keyword search here. I'm just going to go over here so we can find Goldberg quickly. There we go. So, the New York Times columnist, citing the watering down of the platform, called Trump the Siberian candidate. Jeff Goldberg, the person we're talking about, editor of the Atlantic, also labeled Trump a de facto agent of Putin. It's the most basic. I mean, it's not that hard to read the party platform, but it is just one of many examples of how anything that could be used to hammer Trump was seized upon. Now, this is Chris Hedges and Jeff Goldberg talking about this guy and who and what he is. So when they say he has Trump derangement syndrome, they're not lying. So the question becomes, does this matter? Right? I mean, if you read Twitter, Facebook, go on Fox News, go on, conservative radio programs, they're really going after him. And they're basically like, why are we supposed to take the word of this dude? He's not an honest broker. Here's the problem, though. None of that really matters. None of that really matters. As they like to say in politics these days, two things can be true at once. It can be true that Jeff Goldberg hates Donald Trump, has Trump derangement syndrome, and therefore cannot be trusted in his reporting, in his opinions, in anything he says or does with respect to the president. But it's also true that, in fact, a chat room conversation involving 11 high-level Trump administration officials about an actual attack that happened, he was on in that chat room. He was on that as a reporter. So, what's the problem here? See, here's the problem. It doesn't really matter who Jeff Goldberg is. It doesn't matter what he says about Donald Trump. It doesn't even matter what he feels about him. That's all a deflection. The issue is, why are they on this app? I mean, you're watching this video. I'm willing to bet you've probably seen TV shows like 24 or The Lioness. You've seen James Bond movies. You've seen other spy thrillers and, military action television shows. Isn't there always somebody in those shows that says to somebody else, is this a secure line? Are we on a secure line? And when the person says no, what do? They go to a skiff or they go to an encrypted phone in order to have the conversation that they're about to have. Signal is a commercially available consumer product. By definition, that means it's not secure. Which means by definition, this is a conversation that no one in the government should have been having on this platform. It's not secure. That means it can be broken into. It can be compromised because it does not have military grade encryption. So why in the hell are they on there in the first place? Look, I'm a 3-time Trump voter. I've been a Republican all my life. I've never been a never Trumper. But Media Outlaw is supposed to be a platform where the things that need to be said are said without having to worry about being, about the responses, about being canceled or anything like that. And so if you're going to talk about any administration or politics in a intellectually honest way, then that means when your guy fucks up, you got to call it out. Okay? You just have to. Let's go back to that picture again, and I'm going to, again, the video is going to start to play, so I'm going to scroll through it. Where did I put that? Oh, there, two-way.
Yep. All right, I want to talk
All
about
right,
the Jeffrey.
so we're going to scroll up here. All right.
Way. Obviously.
There are 11 people on this group chat. 0 people should have been on this group chat because military operations is not something that you talk about on something that any random person can download off the internet. Bottom line, they didn't belong on this app having this conversation in any way, shape, or form. That's the real issue here. Not Jeff Goldberg. Not his feelings about Trump. Not even the accuracy of what he reported or inaccuracy of it. What matters is first the decision to even set this up. Apparently, this whole thing was set up by Michael Waltz. Look at this. This says National Security Advisor. You're the National Security Advisor and you decide to have a real-time operational conversation on a military op on some random consumer-based messaging app. Really? I mean, I'm sorry. I've never worked in government. I haven't had high security clearances, but I have watched 24, and so I do understand what the word secure line means. CIA Director, John Radcliffe. Dude, really? The CIA is like the granddaddy of all secrecy keeping. Like, you're in charge of the ultra secretive CIA. And you got on this? You didn't say, wait? Like, wait, what? I mean, I can't even... First of all, Stephen Miller is the domestic advisor to the Trump administration. Why is he on this call anyway? His role doesn't have anything to do with international affairs. Now, as an aside, I will tell you, because I talked about this dude in my book, American Backbone, available on Amazon. And I hate to keep plugging it, but it is pertinent to the discussion we're having here. He is one of the hires that I said was a bad hire by Trump, and he did it again. Why is he a bad hire? Because Stephen Miller is what you call a yes man. And I don't mean in the sense of always kissing the boss's ass, although he probably does that too. But people who are yes men or yes women like to have their hands in everything. They want to be involved in everything that's going on so that the person in charge sees them as indispensable. And that becomes very dangerous sometimes because they can torpedo certain situations if things aren't done in the way that they want or that they're not getting credit, all sorts of things. I mean, I lay it out line by line, step by step, why these types of people are bad hires. But even if you think Stephen is brilliant and that he is helping the administration, his role is not international. His role is not military. He doesn't belong in this call. Scott Bessent, he is the Secretary of the Treasury. Why the fuck is he on the call? What does the Treasury have to do with bombing Houthis in Yemen? Like, why does he need to know anything at all about that operation? This guy right here, Brian McCormack, National Security Council staffer. He's a staffer. Why does he need to be on the call? You've already got two national security people on the call. You've got Waltz, who's probably his boss, and you got Tulsi Gabbard, who's the DNI, another person that should know what the hell secure line means. You got three people in the national security apparatus. We don't need a male secretary taking notes. Like, what are we doing here? This is ridiculous. There's 11 people on here. 3 of them don't belong. Susie Wiles. Now, look, Susie is the White House Chief of Staff. So perhaps the argument can be made that she can be on the call so that she can report back to the president. Okay. All right, fine. Who's this person over here on the left? Oh, that's J.D. Vance, the vice president. Now, he is the vice president, so any and every call that ever happens, he has a reason to be on it. But if he's on it, why is Susie on it? Can't he just report back to the president? Can't Marco Rubio just report back to the president? There is no operational reason to have this many people on this chat, and there's certainly no operational reason for this chat to be happening on something that any rando can download from the internet. These type of conversations, if they're going to be had at all, are on secure phone lines. If you have to have a chat because it's a lot easier, then you get some technological genius to create a military encrypted chat room that nobody outside the Pentagon can have access to. I mean, is that so hard? Does that not make sense? Because I'm telling you right now, this doesn't make any sense. This is utter nonsensical BS. And it can't be allowed. It can't be. Look, right now, this story has taken on a life of its own, partly because the Trump administration is doing what they do best. To them, the best defense is offense. So they will attack the messenger, they will attack the outlet as a way to obfuscate the real issue. And in this particular case, it's easy. As an aside, any mainstream media reporters that come across this particular video post, this is why you don't have TDS syndrome. Because when you do, and you misreport, you mischaracterize, or in the case of Goldberg in the past, outright lie, when something real happens, nobody listens to you. And the people inclined to will always have a degree of wondering because the opposition, this time Trump, can accurately point at you and say, they can't be trusted. That's why you don't do that. In this case, look, he did his job. And this is what I mean by doing his job. A, he had all the details. He could have went live or reported immediately while the operation was going on. Instead, Goldberg waited. He's to be commended for that. He didn't break operational security by revealing what he knew. But he could have. Now, subsequent to that, and despite his protestations in the Morning Joe interview of, I don't think it's appropriate to release this type of information for military members and all that, he wrote an article revealing the whole text chain later, like 2 days later. And of course, there were operational details. There were uncomfortable conversation remarks about our allies and things like that. You know, that's not the best look, but I have no doubt that behind closed doors, our allies are talking a bunch of shit about Trump in America, guaranteed anyway. So that's par for the course. But it did happen, and he was allowed on it. And the problem here is, think about it like this. If you talk to an exterminator, and I know this may sound like a wild analogy, but just stay with me right here. Just stay with me. If you talk to any exterminator, they will tell you if you see one roach, there are more than one. What's the correlation? If one group of high-level government officials have a signal chat group created to talk about things that should not be talked about on a unsecure line, that means there are others. This isn't the only one. This is the one we found out about. That cannot be allowed. That cannot be accepted. It doesn't matter if you are a Trump voter, you are MAGA all day long. It does not matter. What matters is they're having conversations on platforms that can be broken into, that are not secure. They shouldn't be having that. They want to have a signal or telegram, whatever you want to call it, group to talk about media, fine. Talk about babies, have at it. Talk about sports, fine. But if you're going to be talking about military operations, military planning, economic planning, discussions with Russia and Ukraine, that stuff needs to be on a phone call that's encrypted, on a video conference that is encrypted. If you are not doing that, then frankly, you don't belong to have your job in national security. I'm just sorry. It's a nonsensical way to go about this. It's just utterly stupid, to be honest with you. I don't know what they're doing. Now, is this going to matter in the long haul? Probably not, because of the person who reported it. Is this the same as what Hillary Clinton did? No. Hillary was this is this. Okay, it's not the same thing at all. So ignore people who say that. But it doesn't mean it's not a problem at all. You know, one of the other things that I talk about in American Backbone is how very often Trump will hand ammunition to his enemies. He will give them material for them to make the case for the narrative that they believe and that they want to make. So when Pete Hegseth is involved in something like this, of course it's easy to say it's not qualified for this job. What is he doing? When Tulsi Gabbard signs in on this, it's easy to say, see, she's supposed to be the DNI and she doesn't know anything about security. When you are allowing a reporter of any sort, let alone one that doesn't like your administration, onto a chat, that's incompetence. It is. Now you can say it was a mistake. Okay, fine. People have all made mistakes on text, on Zoom calls. All right? We've seen it happen, both good and ugly. Which is why you don't do this at all. If I was talking to President Trump right now, I would tell him to ask these people, what in the hell are you doing this anyway? We're in charge of the whole government. You're kind of telling me we don't have another means to communicate about these things with a large group of people, that we don't have to worry about being compromised by outside people, let alone allowing people onto the chat that don't belong? I mean, come on. You got Elon over there. I'm sure he can come up with something in like 15 minutes. I mean, not that he's supposed to be the government IT guy now, but I'm just saying, this doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't. They're going to have to tighten this up, because these are the types of things that will undermine credibility for the administration, particularly if Democrats ever get their act together and get back on their 2 feet and are able to mount some sort of defense to what it is that Trump is doing for the country. As long as they're continuing to be incompetent, then he doesn't have too much to worry about. But that doesn't mean these things can't turn at the drop of a dime, because they can. We've seen it before. That's going to be this week's dispatch for the Media Outlaw. Please go to the Substack. You see the address below. Subscribe to the Substack, where you will be getting video and written commentary and reporting each week. We will be having some upcoming important interviews with people. Also, go ahead and, if you prefer video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Until the next crazy story comes out, you have a good rest of your weekend.